Okay, this is chapter 18, and this is starting this next section, which is basically ecology. Okay, and so we're going to try to work on this right now. In your textbook, there's information about the Amazon. Now, the Amazon is a huge area that supplies tons of the oxygen that we need. Think about that. Because the earth is warming, the Amazon is not as moist as it used to be, which means that it burns easier. Okay, forest fire. Now, around here, we don't worry too much about forest fires. Parts of the world we do. California, you'll hear about the wildfires. They have wildfires every year. They're getting worse every year. More and more and more area is burning, and it is a wildfire. In other words, the fire moves faster than the fastest car can go. It's unreal. Now, also in the Amazon, what is going on is, especially in Brazil, the leader is looking at the financial income to the country for having area of the Amazon turned into farmland so that the farmers can raise beef to be exported for our dinner tables. So he's encouraging the slash and burn of areas of the Amazon, thereby increasing the number of acres that the Amazon is destroyed. Once you destroy it, it's gone, and it takes years and years to get it back. Okay, so in chapter 18, what are we going to do? We're going to look at the biosphere. What is that? We're going to look at the biotic factor and abiotic factors in ecology. Okay, we're going to look at what's the difference between climate and weather. Specifically, we're going to talk about greenhouse effect. And we're going to look at water cycle and carbon cycle. And then how does global warming change the climate? Okay. And then what is the consequences of climate change? Now, some people may go, oh, I don't really like cold weather, so warmer weather is great. Love it. Yeah, well, there is problems with it. If you like warmer weather, move further south. If you like cooler weather, colder weather, snow, you move north. You move yourself. Don't change the whole earth. Okay, biosphere. That's the earth. Everything on the earth is part of the biosphere. It's everything. Inorganic things, water, rocks. It also includes all of the living items. Without Earth, we're going to be dead. Okay? There's no planet B. Okay. Amazon, largest rainforest. Very critical in our planet's biosphere. More than half the world's millions of species of plants and animals live in the Amazon. More than half. Has 1/5 of the world's fresh water, and it is overpopulated with humans. So here, rainforests turn to pastures, grasslands, and agricultural fields. And by doing that, it becomes hotter and drier. Hotter and drier. Now, I think of that when I think of the movie The Lion King. Remember, we're in The Lion King. There, the area was nice and lush and green, and then the other lion took over, and everything died out. there was little to no vegetation. The water disappeared. Animals disappeared. Same thing's happening in the Amazon. Okay, here's a scientist, and she's studying the Amazon rainforest and how to slow down the loss of that. Now, what she's doing is they take her and her team, take plots of the rainforest and do a controlled burn, and then see how, after everything's burned off, see how it is repopulated with plants and animals. Okay, now it's a controlled burn. It's the air. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but it is designed to help understand what can be done to mitigate or to reduce the effects of the Amazon being burnt. Okay, ecology. What is basically looking at organisms in their environment and how there's interaction. There's interaction with you and your environment. Okay? Right. Environment tells us a lot that we can and can't do. Animals, same way. Plants, definitely. Okay, so in the environment, there's two main factors. There's biotic factors and abiotic. Biotic is living. Biology is living. Biotic is living organisms, other living organisms. In our environment, okay, you may have pets at home. There's other people around, yes. Tons of bacteria, as we know. Lots of insects. There's birds. There's other wild critters. There's squirrels running around in the trees trying to eat up my garden. Okay, those are biotic factors. Abiotic is non-living. Your house is an abiotic factor. Okay, you can't move in a king-size bed into a bedroom that's, real tiny. Bed's not going to fit. The abiotic factor has an effect on our environment. This is a picture of the Amazon rainforest, and it's looking at both biotic factors and abiotic factors. So, if we look at abiotic, we see rocks, water, air. Those are abiotic factors. Biotic, we're looking at the plants, animals, microbes. Oh, and guess what? In the water, there is also biotic organisms, fish, and that. But the water itself is abiotic. Okay, so here I would have been asking you if we were in a class, list the biotic and abiotic factors in this photographs that you can see. Okay, so we see plants; those are biotic. We really don't see animals, but we saw other kinds of plants, trees, ferns, brush. Those are biotic factors. And here we can see water, and we can see air. Well, you really don't see air, but you can see that it's clear, and you can see a long ways in that picture. Those are abiotic factors. There's also rocks under the water, along the stream edge. So, question is the forest part of the biotic or abiotic environment? Well, if you thought about it, it's both. The forest has the plants in that, but the plants have to have some substrate to live on, and that's abiotic factors. So is the river part of the biotic or abiotic environment? The water is abiotic, which is river. The animals that's in the water are biotic. Okay, so hot and dry. Okay, this Balch's fires. This is the scientist that did the um, burning of plots in the Amazon. Very much planned, very much restricted, okay, and controlled. She didn't just go out and go, oh, let's burn this area of the Amazon and not that area and whatever. No, she took and made specific spots. Okay, so first of all, before you burn something, you need to take an inventory. You know, if you've ever worked in a store, you know you have to do inventory every once in a while. You know, maybe once a year, maybe more often than that. Whoops, I'm jumping forward here and I don't need to be jumping forward. Okay, so inventory. What plants and animals are in that area? Then they're going to look at it after the fire. So they took 3.5 square kilometer plots of the forest. One was your control plot. Another was an experimental plot, and she burned that once every 3 years. And then another experimental plot she burnt every year. Now, because they're burning, they don't want the rest of the Amazon to burn, they used a fire break. Okay, several meters wide. They cleared everything out of that fire break. And of course, they stood by with water in that to make sure that the area outside of their plot did not burn. 100-year drought. You may have heard the term 100-year flood. Okay, when we say 100-year drought or 100-year flood, it is talking about some event that only occurs, the estimation is that it will only occur once every 100 years. That it's an event that occurs so very seldom that most of us are not going to experience it. Okay, so Amazon, in the last 15 years, 200-year droughts has occurred. Wait a second, only supposed to occur maybe once every 100 years, but it only took 15 years, and there was 2 of them. So, why do we think it's going on? Well, first of all, humans. Increase the number and intensity of droughts through climate change. And climate change is not the weather we're having today. I'm outside my window. It's really nice out there. I haven't been outside yet, but it's nice. Climate change is large-scale, long-term change in the Earth's climate. Not short-term, long-term. So, climate. It's the type of weather a region has over long periods of time. 30 years or more. Okay, so we know, like, we'll pick on California. Hot and dry, right? Pretty much hot and dry all the time. I got my Ph.D. in California. Yes, it was hot, hotter, and hottest. That was the seasons. So the climate is whatever the prevailing weather is. We're on the eastern seaboard, or not close to the ocean, but we're on the eastern side of the United States. We have more rainfall here. We tend to have colder winters and then summers that are warm and moist. Okay. Anything that lives in those different areas, they're very influenced by the climate. Organisms are more strongly influenced by climate than any other feature of their environment. Climate. Okay? Okay, so that's climate. That's long-term prevailing weather. If you garden, you know what gardening zone your garden's in, your yard's in, because that determines what types of plants you can grow. There's plants that will do fine around here, and others no, because they're too fragile. Or there's actually plants that won't grow here because it's not cold enough. Okay. So what is weather? Weather's short term. What's happening right now outside? That's our weather. Short term, limited area. What's happening today? Is it raining outside? Is it cold? Is it hot? Is there a lot of wind? What about the cloud cover? Okay. This is looking at some consequences of climate change. So if we look in the upper left-hand corner, we see a city that's flooded. This floods is occurring more and more often. Hurricanes, right? They're getting worse. There's getting more of them. And because of the surge of water pushed up on the shore, many cities is flooded for a long period of time. Here's upper right-hand corner. There's an area that's so dry, the plants are dying. Bottom right, what we see there looks like ships. And what are they sitting in? Water that has a bunch of dead fish. Climate change. Bottom left looks like the effects after a forest fire. There's logs and stuff laying down. And then if you look at the middle picture, and this is 3 pictures showing a glacier in Switzerland. Picture of it in 1948, and it's a black and white picture. A picture of 2002, and then a picture of 2006. And you can visibly tell that the glacier has melted a lot. Climate change. Glaciers melting, the polar ice caps are melting, the ocean is getting higher. Areas of the earth that are next to the oceans are in danger of flooding and becoming part of the ocean. Venice is experiencing a huge problem. The state of Florida will lose a lot of land if this continues. There's an area between, I believe it's between New York and Philadelphia or something. It's up along the eastern seaboard where the Amazon train runs. There's an area where the tracks to the train are very much in danger of becoming underwater, like almost all the time, eventually all the time. The Amtrak train. Okay. So, how does climate change affect frequency and severity of floods? Well, I mentioned hurricanes. Okay. But that's not necessarily the only thing. So think about it. What else could cause severity of floods? Changes in the environment, changes in the frequency of the weather patterns. Now, weather, remember, is short term, but climate change affects everything. And so we have more droughts, and we also have increase in rain, which equates to flooding. So, has climate change caused a rise in sea level? Or how? Sorry. How has? Well, I already mentioned it. Look at the middle picture, that glacier. Yes, the sea level is rising. There's countries, there's islands that are disappearing. So, it says here, give an example of an environmental effect of climate change in your state or region. Okay, think about it. Is there an effect? You may go, no, there's no effect here. I don't know what they're talking about. Whatever. Okay. There is an effect. Okay, your plants in your yard, they don't know what to do. I have a hydrangea bush that last year, okay, the year before, it bloomed 2 times in the summer. Now, it's only supposed to bloom once, but it was mixed up. It bloomed twice. Then last summer, it didn't bloom except for one single bloom on it. Again, I don't know whether to bloom or not. It's all mixed up. The birds, oh my God, if you listen to the birds when it's the middle of January and we have some warm days, they're singing like they do in the spring. They think it is time to mate and have offspring. They're totally confused. They have offspring in the middle of winter. There's not enough food for them to find. The offspring will die. They will, because of the energy involved in having offspring and trying to feed them, they themselves will lose a lot of body fat, which puts them in danger of not only losing their offspring, but for them to lose their own lives. Plenty of examples. Flooding more. Okay. Climate change. Large scale, long term. Okay. That's climate change. Now, global warming. Now, climate change, okay. Climate change can be increase in temperature or decrease in temperature. Both has happened over the course of Earth's life. Why are we upset now if this has happened before? Well, guess what? Ice Age that the Earth went through. That did not suddenly occur. It took millions of years as the Earth slowly, incredibly slowly, cooled. You and I would not have noticed any change whatsoever because it occurred over millions of years. Just like the last times the Earth warmed. Again, if we had been living then, we would not have noticed any difference whatsoever. Okay, so global warming, increase in temperature, increase in the average surface temperature of the Earth over decades or more. We've sped it up. It's happening even faster. So, what's the temperature on Earth? It's the angle which sunlight strikes the planet. And the sun, the angle is most directly at the equator. So at the equator, temperature really doesn't change. It's always hot and muggy. Okay. Now, the further away from the equator, the angle differs. And also, the amount of sunlight differs in the summertime and the wintertime. Okay, so depending on how much heat reaches the Earth's surface depends on the angle of the sun rays. So most directly at the equator, more of an angle at the north and the south areas of our country, or our world. Okay, so north and south is cooler. Equator, warmer. So, why is it cooler at the poles than at the equator? We've just talked about that. The angle of the sun rays is an angle, not straight on. Thereby, there's not as much heat from the sun that hits that part of the world. Equator, the sun rays are direct. Now, in the summertime, our summertime, the northern part of the earth is tilted more toward the sun. So, we have warmer temperature in the summertime. And then the earth tilts again. And the tilt, slowly. It takes a while before it warms up and we get spring. Okay. That occurs yearly, right? We'll warm in the summer, then the fall comes, starts getting cooler again. It's cold, then again the cycle goes on. Global warming. Not due to how the sun hits the earth. It's due to greenhouse gases. Okay. Now, why do they use the term greenhouse? If you've ever walked into a greenhouse, you know it is a whole lot warmer inside the greenhouse. A good example of a greenhouse is the summer day, your car's been sitting out in the sun and you go to get in. And you know how incredibly hot it can get? Well, all the windows, the windshield, and that acts like a greenhouse. That is what's happening now to our Earth. We have an increase in the greenhouse gases. Now, we need some greenhouse gases up there because it helps keep the Earth warmer so we can live here. But when you increase the greenhouse gases, you increase how much heat is kept on the Earth. So what are greenhouse gases? Carbon dioxide is a biggie. Okay, water vapor contributes to it. Methane, or CH4, and nitrous oxide, and N2O. Okay, and those collectively act like the walls of a greenhouse, and they cause the greenhouse effect. This is image showing, and it's from your textbook, showing information. So let's look at the squares or rectangles. Number 1 up here, it says about a third of the incoming solar radiation, it was reflected back into the space by the atmosphere and Earth's surface. So sunlight coming through, that solar radiation, about a third of it is reflected off. Now, some of it is absorbed, and that warms the planet. Okay. Number 3 down here, some of that absorbed energy is re-emitted to the atmosphere as infrared radiation. Okay. If a rock heats up from being out in the sun all day, you know that it releases that heat as it turns night. The rock is still warm, and then it releases its heat so that by early in the morning the rock is cool again. Same thing here. Number 4 here, it says a portion of the infrared radiation is absorbed by greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Some is re-emitted. That re-emitted infrared radiation further warms the atmosphere and the Earth's surface. Okay. Up here, 5, it says some of the infrared radiation is lost to outer space. But when greenhouse gases, the concentration of those increase, more of the infrared radiation is absorbed and less is lost, thereby warming the Earth even more. So the question is, how much of the incoming solar energy is reflected back to outer space? We read up here. About a third of it is. Okay. What kind of energy is re-emitted to the atmosphere after being absorbed by Earth's surface? It's infrared radiation. And then how are greenhouse gases like a blanket on your bed at night? They help trap the heat. That's what your blankets do. Help trap your body heat so that you stay warmer. Okay? And this is where I'll end for this section. And we'll be back for the next.